The Galactic Council's emergency session had been called for the third time in a century. Representatives from across the spiral arm gathered in their crystalline chambers, their various forms of communication creating a symphony of clicks, whistles, and electromagnetic pulses that the universal translators struggled to parse. Ambassador Kethavar of the Zenthari Empire adjusted his chitinous plates nervously. "The readings must be incorrect," he insisted, his compound eyes reflecting the holographic display showing the Proxima Centauri system. "No biological entity could survive what we're seeing." The Tao hologram showed the aftermath of a Type II supernova, a stellar explosion, that had released more energy in 10 seconds than Sol would produce in 10 billion years. The shockwave had obliterated 3 planets and reduced the 4th to molten slag. Radiation levels remained lethal even to the most hardy species in known space. "The sensors don't lie," rumbled Thessarian Prime, the silicon-based delegate whose voice resonated through the chamber like grinding stone. "There's a human biosignature moving through the debris field. Not in a ship, not in an environmental suit, walking." A collective shudder passed through the assembly. The humans had been admitted to the Galactic Council only 50 years ago, after they'd somehow survived first contact with a Vorthan battle fleet. The Vorthans, apex predators from a high-gravity world, had expected easy conquest. Instead, they'd found themselves negotiating trade agreements after 3 of their dreadnoughts had been disabled by what the humans called improvised explosive devices. Since then, humanity had been classified as a curiosity species, too weak to be threatening, too stubborn to be ignored. Their average lifespan was a fraction of most Council species. Their physical strength was laughable compared to the Zenthari. Their technology was crude compared to the Arcturian Federation. They were, by all measurable standards, fragile. "Perhaps," suggested Councillor Yith, her ethereal form flickering with uncertainty. "The human expired during the event, and we're merely detecting decomposition byproducts." "Negative," the Thessarian replied, manipulating the holographic controls with appendages that resembled crystalline formations. "The biosignature is consistent with an active, living human. Moreover, it appears to be collecting something." The image zoomed in and the assembly fell silent. There, silhouetted against the dying light of the collapsed star, was unmistakably a human figure, Dr. Elena Vasquez. According to the identification beacon that somehow still functioned, despite the radiation that should have fried any electronics within a light year, she was indeed collecting something. Fragments of the star's core, materials that existed in temperatures and pressures that would vaporize most known substances. She moved with the casual efficiency of someone gathering firewood, not the last survivor of an cosmic apocalypse. "This is impossible," whispered Kethavar. "The radiation alone should have torn apart her molecular structure. The temperature differential should have flash-frozen and incinerated her simultaneously." The Arcturian delegate, a being of pure energy contained within a mechanical shell, spoke for the first time. "We must consider that our understanding of human physiology is incomplete." "Incomplete?" The Zenthari ambassador's mandibles clicked in agitation. "We've studied them for decades. They bruise when they fall. They require constant intake of water and nutrients. They die if their atmospheric pressure drops too low or rises too high. They are definitionally fragile." "And yet," the Arcturian continued, "there is Dr. Vasquez, collecting stellar core fragments as though she were gathering shells on a beach." The truth, had the Council known it, was both simpler and more complex than they imagined. Humans were indeed fragile. Their bodies were vulnerable to countless things that wouldn't affect other species. But humanity had learned something that no other species in the galaxy had mastered: the art of redefining possible. When Dr. Vasquez had realized that the research station's evacuation would fail, she hadn't accepted death. Instead, she had done what humans did best: she had improvised. Using the station's emergency medical bay, she had induced a state of controlled cellular death and resurrection, flooding her system with experimental nanites designed to repair radiation damage faster than it could accumulate. The procedure had a 98% fatality rate. The 2% who survived usually suffered permanent neurological damage. Elena had calculated these odds and proceeded anyway, because the alternative was certain death, and humans had never been good at accepting certainty. She had then wrapped herself in a magnetic field generator, jury-rigged from the station's shield array, creating a personal deflector that could theoretically protect her from the worst of the stellar wind. Theoretically, because no one had ever tested it against a supernova before. Finally, she had activated the experimental quantum anchor that their team had been testing, a device designed to lock an object's position relative to local spacetime. It had never been tested on a living being, and the mathematical models suggested it would be excruciating beyond human comprehension. Elena had endured all of this and more. She had felt her cellular structure die and regenerate thousands of times per second. She had experienced gravitational forces that should have turned her into a singularity. She had been bathed in radiation that would have sterilized a planet. And she had survived it all through sheer bloody-minded human stubbornness. Back on the council station, the delegates watched as Dr. Vasquez completed her collection and began moving toward a stable debris field where a rescue ship could theoretically reach her. "How long until our fastest vessel can reach her position?" asked Counselor Yith. 14 standard days, replied the Thessarian, assuming our ships can even survive the residual radiation. "Send a message," ordered Kethvar, his voice hollow with something approaching awe. "Tell Dr. Vasquez that help is coming." "Sir," his aide whispered, "the communication array shows she's already sending us a message." The translation appeared on the main display in simple, straightforward text. "Sample collection complete. Ready for pickup. Please bring coffee. The good stuff, not the recycled rations. Elena." The council chamber fell into stunned silence. Finally, the Arcturian delegate spoke what they were all thinking. "Perhaps we need to revise our definition of fragile." Outside, in the burning heart of a dead star system, Dr. Elena Vasquez sat on a chunk of neutronium and waited for her ride home, humming an old Earth song about walking through fire and coming out stronger. She had work to do, samples to analyze and papers to write. After all, someone had to document humanity's latest impossibility.